The next module is on climbing holds. This module is broken down into 2 video parts. The first part is all about hold selection and how to choose the right holds. The second part is about safe hold attachment. After watching both of these videos, you'll be ready to move on to the assessment at the end of this module. This module should take you approximately 1 hour.
Okay, we're going to talk about climbing holds. First off, we're going to talk about how climbing holds are made, what they're made of, and then we're going to take a deep dive into hold selection and how you should pick your holds to help you set the best route or boulder possible. So how are holds made? Holds are usually made a bit like surfboards are made. You start off with a block of foam, and the shaper lovingly carves the foam into the shape that they're looking for. You know, they'll have an idea, an objective. I want to make a smooth, lined jug set, for instance, and they'll carve that out of foam, start off with a block of foam, cut it down, maybe using a chainsaw, using a chisel, using a rasp, and they end up with a block of foam which has got the shape of the hold that they're trying to create. Then they'll make a mold of the foam, and they'll pour in the material which the hold is made of. There's 3 common materials that we use to make climbing holds. First material we're going to talk about is polyester. So if you pick up a hold and it feels really heavy, a bit like rock, it's heavy, it's hard, feels quite cold, then that's probably made of polyester. Polyester is a common material that we use for a lot of holds in the UK, sort of standard jug size holds. The good things about polyester are it's really hard wearing, it keeps its texture really well. You know, so in a busy climbing wall, this hold has still got plenty of grip, plenty of texture. The downside of polyester is that it can chip. You can get some bad chip marks. It's very brittle. So if this gets dropped on the floor or onto another hold, then it will likely have a big chip out of it. Also, if you over-tighten the screw when you're attaching this hold, you're likely to blow out the side of the hold. So that's polyester. The next common material is polyurethane, plastic. If you pick up a hold and it is lighter, feels quite light, also feels warmer to the touch. You know, if 10 people climb on this hold, then it starts to feel really warm. That's probably made of polyurethane. The good thing about polyurethane is that it's a little bit flexible. You can make these really cool shapes that come to a thin edge when you're making holds out of polyurethane. Because it's flexible, it doesn't chip. So that's the good thing about polyurethane. The downside or the negatives is that it gets polished a bit quicker. So in a really busy climbing wall, if it's used as a foothold hundreds of times, then it can start to lose its texture, feel a bit soapy, waxy or whatever. So that's polyurethane. The next common material, which is often used for big holds, macros we call them, these are often made of fiberglass, or now also made of vacuum molded plastic is another common thing. But fiberglass, they'll be hollow backed, and the way these are shaped is they're sort of laid into a mold, layers of fiberglass laid down on them, and then they have a polyester spray-on texture to finish. So a lot of macros are made of fiberglass. Other common holds that you might see, or along with the holds, we've got volumes. Wooden volumes. The wooden volumes are made of the same material as the climbing wall, 18mm birch ply often.
Hope you're enjoying this video all about hold selection. This is actually one of the modules from our online route setting course, which is called Route Setting Essentials. You can follow the link down below and enroll in the course. We cover all of this stuff about hold selection, but loads of other essential route setting things like hold attachment, PPE, ladder usage, cordoning of an area, all the documentation you need to do. It's a really good foundation for route setting. So if you're starting out in route setting, it's the perfect place to get started. So follow the link below and you can find out all the details about the course and enroll there. Anyway, let's get back to it.
To really add that quality to your boulder, it's nice to choose holds which go well together. Obviously the same colour is a good starting point. And then when the holds are made, they're often shaped in sets. So if you can pick them out in sets that go together, it makes it feel like it belongs when you put them on the wall. For instance, here I have this purple and green hold. This one's got a smooth finish. It's actually got the logo of the company who made it on the hold, but it's like a smooth finish. And then alongside that, in the same colour, I've got like a real rock textured hold. If you set a boulder with the smooth holds and the rock textured hold, it'll be fine, it'll be okay. But if you can choose all of the same textured holds which go together, so like this one's a Fontainebleau sandstone or whatever, if you choose holds that go well together, it'll look like it belongs when it's on the wall, but also when we're climbing on it, it will feel like it belongs in your hands. You know, your body gets used to grabbing this sandstone sloper style. If you throw in another random jagged hold, it won't feel natural to climb on. So if you can, choose holds that are of a similar style or family. It's not always possible, and you've got to work with what you've got at the end of the day. The last thing would be to choose holds that are specifically hand holds or footholds. So if you can, you know, I'm thinking of this flowing V1 that I'm going to set on my 20 or 30 degree overhanging panel. I've got some nice mini jugs for my hands, and then I'm going to choose some appropriate footholds for my feet. This really helps your boulder read well from climber's perspective. You know, it's nice if the climber, especially in this easy grade, can look at the boulder and read the sequence. So if you give them specific handholds and specific footholds, that will help them with that. Lazy route setters, or maybe route setters who don't have such a good hold selection, might sometimes just put a jug on upside down as a foothold, and that makes the sequence harder to read for the climbers. So if you can, choose holds that are specific handholds and specific footholds. So these holds have been lovingly created. You know, when the hold shaper has made the holds, they've carved them with a certain objective in mind. Are they going to be a jug? Are they going to be a crimp? Are they going to be real rock texture, smooth, angular, whatever? So most holds are designed to either be left-handed or right-handed. And we're going to talk through a few principles that you can look out for to help you choose which hold is for which hand. So the first thing I like to look for in a hold is thumb position. The human hand is asymmetrical, so it's a really good way of working out if a hold is left-handed or right-handed. So you can look at a hold and you can work out if it's got somewhere for your thumb to sit comfortably on the hold. This guy's a really good example. Thumb sits in here nicely. So for me, this is a left-handed hold. I've actually found its symmetrical opposite. Yeah, so this one has a nice thumb position here. So this would look like a right hand. So have a look on the hold. Does it have a nice divot or a carved away or comfortable area for your thumb to sit? Another good thing to help you identify whether a hold is right-handed or left-handed is how your fingers sit in the back of the hold. Very often, holds are more in-cut for your index finger, and then they taper away as you work down the hand towards the pinky finger. The reason for this is we can often put a lot more power. We can pull a lot harder on the front two fingers and less hard on the back two fingers. So if the hold is more in-cut for the index and tapering away to the pinky, this shows me that this is probably a right-handed hold. And the thumb position's there, so I'm backing up my theory that this is a right-handed mini jug. Got another hold here. Yeah. This one for me, sort of a large edge. This one for me is more in cut for the index, and it tapers away towards the pinky. So this one's starting to look like a left-handed hold. It doesn't have a specific carved away section for the thumb, but it sort of tapers nicely. Yeah, it feels like it fits in the hand well. So this may well be a left hand. If you use this as a right-handed hold, you know, it's not going to feel horrendous, but feels like a left-handed hold to me. So when you're choosing holds, bear it in mind. How does your hand sit on the hold? Where it can be quite marked whether it's a left or right hand. Handed hold is on pinches. So if I'm looking at a pinch, things that I might look out for are usually the the finger side of the pinch is more positive, more in cut than the thumb side. Yeah, so this guy's more in cut on the left, less in cut on the right side of the hold here, so it feels like a left-handed pinch. Also, the hold pinches often taper from thin at the top to wider at the bottom. So as you weight down on the hold, yeah, you hold on to them nice and securely. That being said, if you wanted to make your boulder harder, or if you're tweaking your boulder later on and you want to make it harder, if we flip the hold this way, it's worse for the fingers, better for the thumb, and it tapers from wide at the top to thinner at the bottom. That would be harder to hold. So, there's no rules. There's no hard and fast rule. What I'm telling you here are like things that you can use to help you make decisions on hold selection. So the next thing we're going to talk about is hold orientation. Along with deciding where you put your handholds and your footholds, hold orientation is what route setting is. We can dictate climbing movement with where we put the holds and the orientation that we put the holds on the wall. So it's a really important thing to consider when we're route setting. If you look at the holds on the wall behind me, you'll notice that most of them have an orientation. They're either tilted slightly left or slightly right, not many horizontal edges. And the main reason for this is that if a hold is orientated in a certain way, it feels comfortable for your body when you're climbing. It also helps with route reading, so whether you notice it or not, it subconsciously tells you whether it's a left-hand hold or a right-hand hold, along with everything that we've learned from our left-hand and right-hand hold selection section a bit earlier. To make holds feel comfortable when we're climbing on them, and when we're pulling hard on the climbing hold, we want to try and keep our hand and our forearm in alignment, so our wrist is in alignment. So with a downward pulling hold, we often slightly externally rotate the hold, pinky finger down, and this puts our wrist in nice alignment. If you go straight downward pulling on the hold, it cocks your wrist in a funny way and it can feel a little bit tweaky on the outside of the wrist. So with a downward pulling hold, we often add some external rotation, pinky finger down, and that allows us to put plenty of force through the hold, pull really hard on it. What are the other grip types? Undercut. So with an undercut, if the undercut is straight up, horizontal undercut, then it feels a bit tweaky on the inside of the wrist if you're pulling really hard. Now this might be what you want, depending on the style of boulder you're setting, but imagine we're setting a flowing, easy V1 and we want it to feel like it belongs. It feels natural, comfortable. So horizontal, bit tweaky on the wrist. If we give it some internal rotation on the hold, it straightens up our wrist and it allows us to really pull on the undercut. So with undercuts, to get that wrist in alignment, we want a bit of internal rotation or pinky finger out, and then we can apply a lot of force through the undercut. What other grip types have we got? We got downward pulling, we got undercut. Let's look at Gaston. So Gaston, or pulling with the shoulder. Well, actually quite often with a Gaston, you change the arm position from your shoulder and you try and keep your wrist in alignment. So when you're setting with a Gaston, you can play with the orientation of the hold. This gets a little bit more tweaky, more aggressive, less tweaky and less aggressive. So playing with the rotation can help you dictate the style and feeling of the move. So as well as thinking about the orientation of our handholds, it's also really important to think about the orientation of our footholds. So when you're orientating your footholds, think about the direction that you're going to be applying force. The climber's going to be applying force with their foot onto the hold. And try and line it up to account for that. Just by changing the orientation of a foothold, we can drastically change a move. We could have a rock over, we could orientate it a little bit differently and we'd have a heel hook, or again differently, and it might change to a toe hook. So the orientation of your footholds is a really important thing to consider.
It's important to choose holds that are appropriate for the difficulty you're trying to set on the wall angle that you've got to work with. So imagine you're trying to set a flowing V1, for instance, and you've got a steep overhanging panel. If you choose yourself some tiny crimps like this, you're going to give yourself a really hard time. On the flip side, if you're trying to set a V5 on a slab or something like that, and you choose yourself some big jugs like this, again, you're going to give yourself a really difficult time. So remember, choose holds that are appropriate for the difficulty and wall angle that you're trying to work with. So for my flowing V1 on the steep overhanging panel, I might choose something like this. And for my V5 on the slab, these look far more appropriate. So in summary, hold selection can make your job as a route setter really easy or really hard, so it's worth paying attention to. Choose holds that go together in similar styles and that are made of the same materials and are obviously the same colour. Choose a selection of left-hand holds and right-hand holds as well as specific footholds. Make sure that you're also choosing holds that are appropriate for the difficulty that you're trying to set and the wall angle that you're working with. When you've got your holds, put them on the wall and consider the orientation of the holds, and this will make your boulders as good as they can possibly be. Now it's time for you to move on to the hold attachment section of this module.
Hope you enjoyed that video all about hold selection. That is one of 10 modules and around 3 hours total of content that's included in the Route Setting Essentials course. It also includes lots of assessments, which means that you get a qualification at the end of it, a certificate to show I know my Route Setting Essentials. And the Route Setting Essentials course is now the first step on the national RSD pathway, which is the UK's national pathway as well. So it's the perfect place to get started. So follow the link below if you're interested in getting the course and getting yourself a qualification. And we look forward to seeing you there, chatting in the community page that we've got alongside it too.